Nigeria is a country of just staggering paradoxes. We're talking about Africa's largest economy, its most populous nation. It's a powerhouse of culture, of energy, of human potential. And yet, for some reason, it seems like it's permanently trapped in a cycle of crisis. The question is, why? And that's the big question, right? How can a nation with so much going for it be held back so profoundly? It's not about a lack of resources. Nigeria has plenty. It's not about a lack of brilliant, talented people. The problem is much, much deeper. It's structural. The answer, the real key to unlocking this whole puzzle, is hidden in plain sight. It's this deep, fundamental gap between authority, or power, and responsibility. Think of it like a ghost in the system, a flaw in the wiring that causes everything to short-circuit. In this explainer, we're going to drag it out into the light. Okay, so let's dive right in. To really get why this gap is so destructive, we first have to be crystal clear on what we're talking about. What do we actually mean when we say authority and responsibility? So authority is pretty straightforward. It's the power to get things done. It's the right to make a decision, to command the resources, to steer the ship. It is, quite simply, the power to decide and to act. Responsibility, then, is the other side of that same coin. It's the obligation to answer for what happens because of those decisions. It's the duty to be accountable for the consequences. In any system that works, these two things, authority and responsibility, have to be welded together. And this is where things get really interesting. When that weld breaks, the system fails in one of two ways. If you have more authority than responsibility, you get impunity. Leaders can do whatever they want with no consequences. But if you have more responsibility than authority, you get scapegoating. People get blamed for problems they had absolutely no power to solve. And the tragedy of Nigeria? It's that both of these things are happening at the same time, all the time. Now, this problem didn't just pop up overnight. Its roots run deep. The colonial system was built to extract resources, not to serve the Nigerian people. Then, decades of military rule took that centralized power and made it even stronger, destroying any mechanisms for accountability. So the democratic government that came to power in 1999, it basically inherited a system that was already broken from the start. So, okay, that's the theory. But what does this gap actually look like in the real world? Let's break down 5 key areas where this isn't some abstract idea. It's a devastating daily reality for millions of people. Let's start with something basic, keeping the lights on, or not. This number, 12, is the number of times Nigeria's entire national power grid collapsed in 2024 alone. Just think about that. It's a perfect symbol of total system failure. And this right here shows you exactly why it keeps happening. It's a game of hot potato with blame. The president has the ultimate authority, but the responsibility gets passed down the line from one person to the next until it just disappears. Everybody has an excuse, so nobody is ever held accountable. And the result? You're left in the dark, literally. Now let's talk about security. This number? It's just staggering. More than 350,000 people have lost their lives to the Boko Haram insurgency. The president is the commander-in-chief. He has the ultimate authority over the military. And yet, after such a catastrophic failure, the responsibility seems to belong to absolutely no one. And a huge part of the security crisis comes down to this disconnect. On paper, Nigeria is a federal republic, but in practice, power is incredibly centralized. So you have state governors who their people hold responsible for keeping them safe, but these governors have zero authority over the federal police force in their own state. See the problem? They have all the responsibility, but none of the power. And what about the legislature, the branch of government that's supposed to be the watchdog? Well, they've largely abandoned their duty too. This quote really says it all. The authority to oversee the government and scrutinize the budget has been twisted into a tool for personal gain, not public good. The judiciary is caught in a similar trap. They are given the enormous responsibility of validating or overturning elections after they've already happened. But they have absolutely no authority over how those elections are conducted. They're essentially being asked to clean up a mess that they had no power to prevent. And honestly, nowhere is this gap more obvious or more painful than at the local level. This is where the rubber meets the road. Local governments are responsible for things like primary schools, local clinics, and basic roads. But in reality, they have no real authority. State governors control their funding and even their elections. It's the ultimate example of responsibility without power, and the result is a total collapse of the services people need most.
Okay, so it's a pretty bleak picture, I know, but it's not hopeless. In fact, understanding this structural flaw is the absolute first step toward fixing it. So now let's talk about the path forward, about how to rewire this nation and finally close that gap.
And this is maybe the single most important point. This isn't about just finding a better president or better governors. You can't put a new driver in a car with a broken engine and expect it to work. The problem is the system itself. The solution has to be structural. It means building a new system where power and accountability are finally aligned. And that solution is genuine federalism.
So, what does that actually look like? Well, it boils down to three huge changes. First, state police. If a governor is responsible for security, they must have the authority to command the police. Second, resource control. Let states manage their own resources so they actually have the power and the incentive to grow their own economies. And third, real local autonomy. Free local governments from the grip of the states so they can finally serve the people they're closest to.
Of course, these big structural reforms can't happen in a vacuum. They need a support system. They have to be backed up by stronger institutions, a judiciary that is truly independent, a legislature that actually does its job of oversight, and a professional civil service that works for the public, not for the powerful. It's all connected. Which brings us right back to where we started, back to those two powerful words, authority and responsibility. The authority to change course, to choose a new path, rests with the people of Nigeria and their leaders. The power is there. But the final, most important question of all still remains. Who is going to step up and take responsibility for the outcome?